Fleet answers alien, SOS, Deathworlders unite. Part 2. 2 weeks after the Defiant rescued the Norvani, Captain Lisa Chen stood in the main conference room of Earth Defense Force headquarters. The wall-sized screen showed images of the damaged Norvani ship and medical scans of the aliens. Chen had been called away from her command of the diplomatic vessel Horizon for this emergency meeting. "The Norvani weren't exaggerating," said Admiral William Carter, a tall man with gray hair and a serious face. "We've confirmed their story with deep space monitoring stations. 3 star systems near Norvani space have gone dark in the past month." Chen studied the star map that appeared on the screen. Red markers showed the systems that had fallen to the Vex. "How much time do we have?" she asked. "Not enough," Carter replied. "If the Vex continue at their current pace, they'll reach the outer human colonies within 2 years." The door opened and a Norvani entered, moving carefully in the Earth normal gravity. It was Keltar, now serving as an official representative. 2 human doctors walked beside him, ready to help if the gravity became too much. "Ambassador Keltar has a proposal," Carter said. The Norvani stepped forward. His large eyes moved around the room, taking in the faces of the 20 human military leaders. "We have identified other potential allies," Keltar said, his voice coming through a translator device at his throat. "Species who, like humans, evolved on what we call death worlds." He tapped a control, and new stars lit up on the map. "Here, the Kral, a reptilian species from a world with high gravity and constant earthquakes. Here, the Duranti, who live on an ice world with crushing atmospheric pressure. And here, the Heliorites, silicon-based beings who evolved in the radiation of their star's corona." Carter nodded to Chen. "Captain, your mission is clear. You will take the Horizon and make contact with these potential allies. Commander Roberts and the Defiant will escort the Norvani representatives to gather more intelligence on the Vex." Chen felt a mix of excitement and worry. "Sir, none of these species have had contact with humans before. They might not welcome us." "They'll listen when they hear about the Vex," Carter said. "Keltar will provide diplomatic protocols for each species." 3 days later, the Horizon left Earth orbit with a small fleet of support vessels. Chen stood on the bridge, watching her home planet shrink behind them. "First stop is Kral space," she told her crew. "Estimated arrival in 6 days." Lieutenant Greg Howard, the ship's tactical officer, looked nervous. "The briefing said the Kral are aggressive and territorial." "They're also pragmatic," Chen replied, "and they hate invaders even more than visitors." The journey to Kral space was tense but uneventful. When they arrived at the edge of the system, they were met by 3 Kral warships. The alien vessels were heavily armored with sharp angles and weapons pointed at the human fleet. "They're hailing us," said Communications Officer Peter Diaz. Chen straightened her uniform. On screen, the face that appeared was not what she expected. The Kral captain had a reptilian appearance with scales and 4 eyes, but there was clear intelligence in those eyes. 4 arms crossed over a broad chest covered in ornate armor. "I am Captain Sarex of the Kral Defense Force," the alien said, through the translation system. "You enter our space uninvited. Explain." "I am Captain Lisa Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Horizon. We come with urgent news and a proposal from both humans and the Norvani." Sarex's eyes narrowed. "The Norvani sent you, those fragile creatures? They helped us understand a threat that concerns us all. The Vex. They are moving through this sector of space, consuming worlds." There was a long pause. Then, "We have heard rumors. Come to the 3rd planet. We will discuss this threat." The Kral homeworld was a harsh place by human standards. The higher gravity made Chen's legs ache as she walked with her diplomatic team. The ground shook regularly with small earthquakes, which the Kral ignored completely. Their buildings were low and sturdy, designed to withstand constant shaking. In the Kral command center built inside a mountain, Sarex showed them evidence that Kral scouts had gathered. "The Vex attacked a trading post on the edge of our territory last month," Sarex said. "We destroyed the ships they sent, but there are many more." Chen nodded. "That's why we need to work together. The Norvani believe that species from harsh worlds, Deathworlders like us, have the best chance against the Vex. Sarex's scales rippled in what Chen guessed was amusement. So the soft-skinned ones seek the hard-skinned ones for protection? For the alliance, Chen corrected. Each of our species has different strengths. After 3 days of talks, the Krall agreed to join the coalition. With 2 Krall warships added to her fleet, Chen traveled to the frozen world of the Duranti. The Duranti were more welcoming than the Krall, but no less intimidating. They were massive, fur-covered beings with thick limbs and small eyes adapted to their planet's dim light. Their leader, Commander Kor, stood 2 heads taller than the tallest human. "We have fought the Vex already," Kor told Chen as they walked through ice tunnels that served as Duranti cities. "They came to mine our world's core metals. They did not expect us to fight so effectively in our own environment." "That's what we're counting on," Chen said. "Each Deathworld species has advantages the Vex aren't prepared for." The Duranti agreed to join after just 1 day of discussions. They contributed 3 ships to the growing fleet. The final destination was the most challenging, the Heliorite system, where the species lived not on a planet but in habitats orbiting their star, occasionally diving into the corona itself to gather energy. The Heliorites were unlike any life form Chen had encountered. Their bodies looked like living crystal that glowed from within. They communicated through light patterns that the translation system struggled to interpret. Their leader, called Luminarch Solara, was initially reluctant. "Our defenses are adequate for our needs," Solara's lights pulsed. "Why should we leave our home unprotected to fight elsewhere?" Chen showed the Heliorite leader the projections of Vex expansion. "Because eventually, they will come here with forces too large for you to handle alone. Together we stand a better chance." After much debate, the Heliorites agreed to send a single ship to join the coalition. When Chen returned to rendezvous with the Defiant, she found Commander Roberts waiting with new intelligence from the Norvani. "The Vex operate like a virus," Roberts explained as they walked through the Defiant's corridors. "They infect conquered species and convert them into new Vex units. But they avoid environments they consider hostile." "Like our homeworlds," Chen said. "Exactly. They target the easiest worlds first, the ones with conditions similar to their original environment. That's why they hit the Norvani first. But that strategy has a weakness." Chen smiled. "They've never faced species that evolved in the conditions they fear most." As the combined fleet assembled at the edge of Norvani space, Chen looked at the ships gathered on her view screen. Human, Krall, Duranti, and Heliorite vessels, each designed for different environments but now united by a common threat. "We've never fought together before," she told her officers during the final briefing. "But the Vex have never faced anything like us either." Fleet Answers Alien, SOS. Deathworlders Unite. Part 1. The stars looked different from this part of space. Commander Alan Roberts stood on the observation deck of the Earth Defense Force vessel Defiant, his eyes fixed on the unfamiliar patterns of light. 6 months into their patrol mission along the outer colonies, and he still hadn't gotten used to the view. "Commander, you should come to the bridge." The voice of Lieutenant Susan Miller crackled through his communicator. Something in her tone made Roberts move quickly. When Roberts arrived on the bridge, the crew was gathered around the communication station. Miller's fingers moved across her console as she adjusted frequencies. "I picked up a signal about 10 minutes ago," she said without looking up. "It's not one of ours. It's not from any known human colony or outpost. It's not even using any communication protocol in our database." "Pirates?" asked Major Keith Johnson, Robert's second in command. Miller shook her head. "No way. The signal pattern is too complex, too alien." Roberts leaned over her shoulder. "Let me hear it." She tapped a button, and a strange sound filled the bridge. It wasn't like any language Roberts had heard before. A series of musical tones mixed with clicks and hums that rose and fell in a pattern that seemed almost mathematical. "It repeats exactly the same way every time," Miller said. "And it's coming from this location." She pulled up a star chart and pointed to a spot in empty space far from any known settlements. "That's a distress call," said Roberts. He had spent enough years in space to recognize desperation, even when it came in an alien voice. Johnson frowned. Protocol says we should report this to command and wait for instructions. How long would that take? Roberts asked. At least 3 days for the message to reach Earth and for them to respond. Roberts looked at the blinking dot on the screen. Whoever sent that message might not have 3 days. Plot a course, maximum speed. The Defiant traveled for 18 hours toward the source of the signal. The crew was tense, excited. Humans had encountered only 2 other intelligent species in their century of space travel. Both had been cautious, distant meetings. This would be different. This would be a rescue. We're approaching the coordinates, announced the pilot, Sam Foster. Dropping out of FTL in 3, 2, 1. The stars reappeared as the ship returned to normal space. Directly ahead floated what was clearly an alien vessel. It was unlike any ship Roberts had seen, shaped like a curved leaf with glowing lines running along its surface. Parts of its hull were broken open, revealing damaged systems inside. Life signs? Roberts asked. Yes, replied Dr. Laura Weber from the science station. But they're weak and strange, not matching any known pattern. Definitely not human. They're hailing us, Miller said. Their transmission contains a basic translation matrix. It's primitive, but it might work. Put them through, Roberts ordered. The main screen flickered and revealed an alien face. The creature had pale, almost translucent skin stretched over a narrow skull. Its eyes were enormous, with no visible pupils, and it had no nose, just 2 small breathing slits. When it spoke, its thin lips barely moved. Help, survivors, attack. The translation was broken, but the message was clear enough. I am Commander Alan Roberts of the Earth Defense Force vessel Defiant, Roberts said slowly. We received your distress call. How can we assist you? The alien seemed to struggle for a moment. Need medical, ship damaged, cannot travel. Roberts nodded to Weber. Prepare the medical bay and tell the engineering team to get ready. We're going to bring them aboard. Johnson moved closer and spoke quietly. Sir, are you sure? We know nothing about them. They need help, Roberts said simply. That's all we need to know right now. It took an hour to arrange the rescue. The alien ship had 27 survivors aboard, all injured to varying degrees. They called themselves the Norvani, and their ship had been attacked while exploring what they thought was empty space. The first Norvani to board the Defiant was introduced as Keltar, a diplomat. Up close, the aliens looked even more fragile. They moved carefully in Earth-normal gravity, their slender limbs trembling with the effort. The medical team helped them to the prepared quarters where the gravity had been reduced. Your assistance is unexpected, Keltar said once the translation system was working better. We did not know if anyone would respond. Why did you come to this part of space? Roberts asked. We were searching, Keltar replied. Searching for help against the Vex. The Vex? They came to our home system 1 year ago. They consume. They destroy. They convert. Most of our worlds are lost. This ship was sent to find allies. Roberts frowned. And you specifically sent your distress call on frequencies that human ships would detect? Keltar's large eyes blinked slowly. Yes. We have been monitoring your broadcasts for some time. Your species interests us. Why? Because you evolved on what we classify as a death world. The term made Roberts uncomfortable. A what? A planet with conditions most species would find impossible to survive. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, dangerous predators, radiation from your sun. Your world would kill most sentient beings in the galaxy within days. Miller, who had joined them, looked surprised. Earth isn't that bad. To us, it is a nightmare, Keltar said, and that is precisely why we sought you out. The Vex avoid death worlds. They fear species who evolved in such conditions. You possess physical capabilities we can only dream of. Your strength, your endurance, your ability to survive radiation and pressure changes. Roberts began to understand. You think we can fight these Vex when you can't. We know you can, Keltar said. Your bodies are built to withstand conditions that would destroy ours. Your minds evolved to outwit predators. You are natural survivors. Johnson, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. If these Vex are as dangerous as you say, they'll come after Earth eventually. Yes, Keltar agreed. They will consume all worlds they can, but they will leave Deathworlds for last when they have grown strong from easier conquests. Roberts stood up straight, feeling the pull of the ship's artificial gravity, a force that strained the Norvani but that his human body handled without thought. We need to inform Earth about this, he said. But first tell us everything you know about the Vex. Keltar's thin fingers tapped at a device on his wrist, and a hologram appeared between them. It showed a massive fleet of angular ships surrounding a dying planet. This was our colony world of Terrace 3 months ago, Keltar said. 2 billion Norvani lived there. Now it is a barren rock stripped of all resources. The crew of the Defiant watched in silence as the recording showed the planet's surface being methodically destroyed. We never stood a chance, Keltar said. But perhaps with your help, other worlds might. Roberts looked at the faces of his crew. Human faces evolved on a world that had shaped them through millions of years of survival challenges. Earth had made them strong in ways they had never fully appreciated. Send a priority message to Earth Command, Roberts told Miller. Tell them we've made first contact with the Norvani species and that we've received information about an imminent threat to multiple systems. Request immediate instructions and reinforcements. He turned back to Keltar. Until then, we'll escort your ship to the nearest human outpost where your people can receive proper medical care. And we'll need to know everything about these Vexi, their weaknesses, their technology, their patterns. For the first time, something like hope appeared in Keltar's expression. Perhaps the Deathworlders will succeed where we failed. Fleet answers alien SOS. Deathworlders unite. Part 3. The Coalition fleet gathered at the edge of Norvani space looked impressive but untested. 27 ships of different designs and capabilities formed a defensive formation around the command. Vessels Horizon and Defiant. Captain Chen and Commander Roberts stood together on the Horizon's bridge, studying the tactical display. We've never fought as a unit before, Chen said. Each species has its own combat style. Roberts nodded. That's why we need to establish clear roles based on strengths before we engage the enemy. Lieutenant Greg Howard had spent days analyzing the capabilities of each Allied ship. He pointed to the display where he had color-coded the fleet. The Kral ships have the strongest armor, Howard explained. They should be our front line. The Duranti vessels carry powerful energy weapons but move slower. They work best as our heavy support. The Heliorite's ship can withstand radiation that would disable our systems, making them perfect for special operations. And our ships? Roberts asked. We're the most balanced, Howard replied. Fast, well-armed, good defense systems. We should coordinate the assault and adapt as needed. Chen approved the plan. Through the translation systems, she explained the strategy to the alien commanders. Captain Sarex of the Kral accepted his role with pride. Commander Kor of the Duranti seemed eager to test their weapons against a new enemy. Only Luminarch, Solara of the Heliorites, expressed concern. We are not warriors by nature, Solara's light patterns conveyed, but we understand necessity. The Coalition received reports of Vex activity near a small Norvani colony world. The Vex had sent a harvesting fleet to strip the planet of resources. This would be the Coalition's first battle together. Remember, Chen told her crew, communication is key. We need to coordinate with our allies through every step. The journey to the Norvani colony took 16 hours. When they arrived, they found 5 large Vex ships surrounding the planet. The alien vessels were angular and dark, with strange growths on their hulls that looked both mechanical and organic. They haven't detected us yet, Howard reported. Their attention is focused on the planet. Chen opened a channel to the fleet. All ships move into attack formation. Kral vessels take point, Duranti ships provide covering fire. Heliorite vessel, target their power systems. Human ships will exploit any weaknesses we find. The battle began with the Kral ships charging forward, their reinforced hulls absorbing the first wave of Vex counterattacks. The Durante ships fired, their energy weapons from behind the crawl line, cutting into the nearest Vex vessel. At first, the plan worked perfectly. 2 Vex ships sustained heavy damage. But then, the Vex adapted. They stopped attacking the crawl ships and instead focused their fire on a single point in the formation, the gap between the human and Durante vessels. They fight as a collective, observed Dr. Nancy Wilson, the Horizon's chief science officer. They're sacrificing individual units for strategic advantage. A Vex ship broke through the coalition line and headed straight for the Norvani planet. Captain Sarex made a split-second decision to pursue, taking his crawl cruiser out of formation. 3 smaller Vex ships immediately surrounded the lone crawl vessel. Captain Sarex returned to formation. Chen ordered over the comm. Negative, came the reptilians' response. They must not reach the planet. The crawl ship was taking heavy damage. Its engines were failing, but Sarex refused to retreat. Chen made a difficult decision. Howard, divert power to engines. We're breaking formation to assist the crawl. Captain, that's exactly what the Vex want, Roberts warned. They're trying to separate us. If we don't help Sarex, the alliance falls apart before it begins, Chen replied. Sometimes the logical move isn't the right one. The Horizon raced toward the surrounded crawl ship, firing its main weapons to draw the Vex attackers' attention. The Durante saw what was happening and redirected their fire to provide cover. Even the Heliorite vessel moved to assist, using its radiation immunity to approach a Vex ship from an unexpected angle. Chen's gamble worked. The coalition ships rescued the damaged Kral cruiser and destroyed 2 of the attacking Vex vessels. The remaining Vex ships retreated from the system. Why did they withdraw? Roberts wondered as the coalition regrouped. They still had the numbers advantage. I think they were testing us, Wilson suggested, learning how we fight. The victory came at a cost. 2 human ships were badly damaged. The crawl cruiser would need extensive repairs. Most concerning was how quickly the Vex had identified and exploited weaknesses in their formation. During the after-action review, the coalition leaders gathered on the Horizon. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. You broke formation to save my ship, Captain Sarex said to Chen, his forearms making a gesture of respect. The Kral do not forget such actions. We fight differently than the Vex, Chen replied. We don't sacrifice our allies for tactical advantage. Commander Kor of the Durante nodded his massive furry head. This is why Deathworlders will win. We value individual strength alongside collective strategy. Dr. Wilson had been analyzing debris from the destroyed Vex ships. She entered the meeting room with excitement clear on her face. I've made a discovery, she announced. The Vex communicate through quantum entanglement. That's how they coordinate so effectively across distances. Can we disrupt it? Roberts asked. Wilson smiled. I believe so. If we can build quantum disruptors and deploy them during battle, we might be able to isolate segments of their fleet from the hive mind. This was the first real advantage they had found. Luminarch Solara's crystalline body glowed brighter as the Heliorite processed this information. Our species has extensive experience with quantum mechanics, Solara communicated. We can assist in developing this technology. For the first time since the coalition formed, there was a sense of true cooperation. Each species offered their unique knowledge and abilities toward a common goal. The Norvani provided information on Vex behavior, patterns. The Kral shared their armoring techniques. The Durante explained how their weapons penetrated Vex shields. The Heliorites began working with human scientists on quantum disruptor prototypes. As the coalition prepared for their next encounter, Chen found Roberts on the observation deck, looking out at the assembled fleet. Do you think we can actually win this? She asked. Roberts watched as a Kral engineer directed repairs on a human vessel, while Durante crew members assisted. Nearby, the Heliorite ship glowed with energy patterns as it communicated with the other vessels. The Vex chose the wrong enemies, Roberts said. They thought Deathworlders would be too busy surviving our harsh planets to become threats. But they missed something important. What's that? Difficult environments don't just make you strong, they teach you to adapt. and adaptation is the ultimate evolutionary advantage. Fleet answers alien. SOS, Deathworlders Unite, Part 4. In the weeks following their first victory, the Coalition pushed deeper into Norvani space. They liberated 3 small colonies and destroyed many Vex ships. With each battle, they learned more about their enemy and improved their coordination. Dr. Wilson's quantum disruptors proved effective. When deployed, they cut off Vex ships from their hive mind for short periods. During these moments, the Vex units became confused and easier to defeat. But as the Coalition advanced, they discovered the true extent of the Vex invasion. Long-range scans revealed dozens of worlds already stripped of resources. Many Norvani populations had been eliminated or assimilated into the Vex collective. The Coalition fleet gathered near an abandoned space station to plan their next move. Captain Chen, Commander Roberts, and the other leaders studied the latest intelligence reports. "We have a problem," Chen said, pointing to a holographic map. "Our scouts have located a massive Vex mothership here, near the central Norvani worlds. It's surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels." Captain Sarex's scales darkened with concern. "Our current force cannot defeat a fleet of that size." Commander Kor of the Duranti growled in frustration. "We must attack before they grow stronger." "Direct assault would be suicide," Roberts said. "But retreating means abandoning the remaining Norvani worlds." The meeting continued for hours without reaching a solution. The Coalition leaders argued about different approaches. Some wanted to request more ships from their homeworlds. Others suggested targeting Vex supply lines instead of confronting the mothership directly. During a break in the discussions, Private Frank Cooper, a Marine from Earth, approached Chen timidly. "Captain, I have a thought," Cooper said. "May I speak?" Chen nodded. "Go ahead, Private." "Why are we fighting them in space?" Cooper asked. "Space isn't a death world. Our planets are." The simple observation silenced the room. Roberts looked at Cooper with new interest. "Explain what you mean." "The Vex avoid death worlds because their systems can't handle the conditions that we evolved in," Cooper continued. "So why are we fighting them where they're strongest? We should make them fight us where we're strongest." Chen's eyes widened as she understood. "Instead of attacking their fleet directly, we lure segments of it to our homeworlds." The idea was risky but brilliant. Instead of facing the entire Vex armada at once, they would split it up and fight smaller groups in environments where the Deathworlders had every advantage. The Coalition developed a plan. Each species would prepare battlegrounds on their homeworlds, environments that would strain Vex biological and mechanical systems but where the natives thrived. The Duranti set traps in the crushing gravity and sub-zero temperatures of their ice planet. The Kraul prepared killing zones in their world's unstable volcanic regions. The Heliorites positioned defenses in their star's radioactive corona, and humans converted a large area of the Australian outback into a massive ambush site. To lure the Vex to these locations, the Coalition broadcast false intelligence suggesting each world contained valuable resources, but minimal defenses. The trick was making the bait attractive enough without revealing it was a trap. "The Vex are driven by resource acquisition," Keltar explained. "They will not be able to resist such tempting targets." 2 weeks later, the trap was ready. The Coalition split into 4 groups, each returning to defend their homeworld. Dr. Wilson provided each group with improved quantum disruptors that could cut off Vex units from the hive mind for longer periods. Roberts commanded the Earth Defense Force. His ships hid behind the moon, waiting. Ground forces were positioned throughout the Australian outback, using the harsh terrain and scorching heat to their advantage. The Vex took the bait. 4 separate fleets broke away from the mothership and headed toward each of the death worlds. Battle for Earth began when 30 Vex ships entered the atmosphere over Australia. They were immediately met with a barrage of fire from hidden human positions. The quantum disruptors activated, cutting off the Vex ships from their collective intelligence. What followed was not a space battle, but a ground war. The Vex deployed ground units, part machine, part organic, that struggled in Earth's gravity and heat. Human soldiers, perfectly adapted to their environment, moved quickly through the terrain they'd known all their lives. Similar scenes played out on the other death worlds. On the Durante ice planet, Vex units froze and malfunctioned in temperatures that the furry Durante found merely brisk. In the unstable regions of the Crawl homeworld, Vex machines sank in suddenly liquefied ground during earthquakes, while the four-armed Crawl moved nimbly across the shifting terrain. The most spectacular defense came from the Heliorites. They lured Vex ships into their star's corona, where radiation levels destroyed Vex systems but merely energized the crystalline Heliorites. Roberts received updates from the other battlefronts as he directed Earth's defense. The Vex were being defeated on all four worlds. Cut off from the hive mind and placed in environments they weren't designed for, the invaders' advantage had become a weakness. They evolved in stable, moderate conditions, Dr. Wilson explained as she monitored the battle from the command center. They never needed to adapt to extremes like we did. Their biology and technology are both optimized for efficiency, not survival. The fighting lasted 3 days on Earth. When it ended, the Australian outback was littered with destroyed Vex machines. Similar reports came from the other death worlds. The coalition had won decisive victories on all fronts. Roberts stood with Chen on a hill overlooking the battlefield. The red dust of the outback swirled around them in the hot wind. Human soldiers were collecting Vex technology for study. The Vex mothership has retreated, Chen said, reading a report on her tablet. They've abandoned their harvesting operations in Norvani space. They're reconsidering their strategy, Roberts replied. For the first time, they've encountered species that can't be easily conquered. A message arrived from Keltar. The Norvani diplomat's large eyes showed an emotion Roberts hadn't seen before: hope. The coalition has proven what we believed, Keltar said. Deathworlders united are a force that even the Vex fear. Chen looked out at the harsh landscape that had helped them win. All those years thinking we drew the short straw, evolving on such a challenging world, she said. Turns out, Roberts replied with a smile, it was our greatest advantage. Reports from across the galaxy indicated the Vex were avoiding direct confrontation with coalition forces. Instead, they were focusing on easier targets in distant sectors. The coalition's next step was clear. They would take the fight directly to the Vex, liberating conquered worlds and offering protection to vulnerable species. What began as a response to a desperate distress call had become something more: the foundation for a new interstellar community bound by their shared resilience. As Roberts prepared to return to space, he took one last look at the Earth's blue sky and felt a new appreciation for the difficult world that had shaped humanity into what it was: tough, adaptable, and ready to face whatever challenges the universe might bring. Fleet answers alien. SOS, Deathworlders Unite. Part 5. 6 months after the victories on the Deathworlds, Commander Alan Roberts stood on the observation deck of a new ship. The Unity was the first vessel built with combined technology from all 4 Deathworld species. As the flagship of the Coalition fleet, it represented something that had never existed before: a true interspecies alliance. Roberts, now promoted to Admiral, watched as ships bearing the new Coalition emblem moved into formation around the Unity. Each vessel was unique, designed for the specific needs of its crew, yet they all worked together as one force. Lieutenant Susan Miller joined him at the window. The Vex have abandoned 3 more sectors, she reported. They're retreating faster than we can pursue them. They're not used to being hunted, Roberts replied. For centuries, they were always the predators, never the prey. The decisive victories on the Deathworlds had changed the course of the war. The Vex mothership had retreated to distant space, abandoning its harvesting operations to consolidate forces. For the first time, the Norvani could see hope for reclaiming their conquered territories. Roberts and Miller walked to the main conference room where representatives from each allied species waited. Captain Sarex of the Crawl stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, scales gleaming under the lights. Commander Core of the Durante sat in a specially reinforced chair, his massive fur-covered frame too heavy for standard furniture. Luminarch Solara of the Heliorites floated in a containment field that simulated the conditions of their star's corona, their crystalline body glowing softly, and beside them stood Keltar of the Norvani, now serving as the Coalition's chief ambassador. The slender alien looked fragile compared to the others, but his large eyes held wisdom and determination. Our intelligence reports indicate the Vex are avoiding direct confrontation with Coalition forces, Roberts began. They're focusing on easier targets in distant sectors. They fear us now, Kor rumbled. As they should. Sarex made a clicking sound that his translator rendered as laughter. They thought Deathworlders would be easy to avoid. Now they run. From us. Keltar stepped forward. While this is cause for celebration, we must not grow complacent. The Vex are adaptive. They will develop new strategies. Agreed, Robert said. That's why our next step is clear. We take the fight directly to them, liberate conquered worlds, and offer protection to vulnerable species. The Coalition had already begun this work. 3 Norvani worlds had been freed from Vex control. Other species who had lost territory to the Vex were reaching out to join the alliance. What began as a desperate response to a distress call had become the foundation for a new interstellar community. Keltar activated a holographic display showing dozens of star systems. I have a proposal to present to you all, he said. A formal alliance extending beyond the current conflict. What would be the purpose of this alliance? Solara's lights pulsed. Alone, each of our species faced limitations, Keltar explained. The Vex succeeded because they combined the strengths of many into one, but we've proven there's another way. Cooperation without assimilation, unity without uniformity. Robert studied the proposal. It outlined a mutual defense pact, technology, sharing agreements and diplomatic protocols for resolving disputes between member species. You want to call it the Deathworld Concordat? He asked. Yes, Keltar replied. A name that honors the shared heritage that brought you all together. The discussion lasted for hours as each representative raised concerns and suggested modifications. The Krawl wanted stronger military commitments. The Duranti focused on resource sharing. The Heliorites were concerned about cultural preservation. Humans pushed for exploration rights, but beneath the negotiations was a shared understanding. They were stronger together than apart. As the meeting concluded, news arrived that other species from harsh worlds were requesting to join the alliance. A reptilian species from a high-radiation planet. Insectoid beings from a world with crushing atmospheric pressure. Even aquatic creatures from an ocean planet with powerful currents and extreme depths. They all share something with us, Miller observed. They evolved in conditions most species would find impossible. That common experience creates a bond, Roberts replied. We understand struggle in a way others don't. 1 month later, the Unity led the Coalition fleet on a mission to liberate a Vex-controlled mining world. Intelligence reports indicated the planet was being stripped of resources by a small Vex force. The operation would be simple compared to previous battles. Robert stood on the bridge as the fleet dropped out of FTL near the target planet. The scene before them was exactly as expected. Vex harvester ships, extracting minerals from the surface. All ships move into attack formation, Roberts ordered. Deploy quantum disruptors on my mark. The Coalition ships moved with practiced coordination. Each species had learned to complement the other's strengths and compensate for weaknesses. The Krawl provided the front line with their heavily armored vessels. The Duranti followed with heavy weapons. The Heliorites flanked the enemy with their radiation-resistant ships. Human vessels coordinated the assault. The battle was brief but intense. Cut off from the hive mind by the quantum disruptors, the Vex ships were quickly overwhelmed. Within hours, the Coalition had secured the planet and begun evacuating the enslaved mining colony. As Roberts oversaw the operation from the Unity's command center, he received a message from Earth. The Deathworld Concordat had been officially ratified by all founding members. The alliance was now formal and binding. Roberts shared the news with his crew. Cheers erupted across the ship, echoed by similar celebrations on vessels of all species throughout the fleet. Later, Roberts returned to the observation deck, Lieutenant Miller found him there, looking out at the stars. The Vex believed themselves to be the ultimate evolutionary success, Roberts said. They saw our harsh worlds as evolutionary dead ends, too challenging to be worth the effort. They never considered that difficulty breeds strength, Miller replied. Roberts nodded. Or that diversity could be a greater advantage than uniformity. Beyond the window, ships bearing the new Concordate emblem moved in perfect formation. Vessels, designed by beings that evolved in fire, ice, radiation, and pressure. Each represented a species that found their own path to the stars despite impossible odds. The Unity prepared to lead the fleet to their next target. The Vex were retreating, but the war wasn't over. There were worlds to liberate, species to protect, and a new interstellar order to build. But for the first time, Roberts felt certain of victory. The message that had started as a desperate alien SOS had led to something greater than anyone could have imagined. A union of species forged in the harshest environments the universe had to offer. The Deathworlders had united, and the galaxy would never be the same.